What back?
Yesterday morning, I was gonna come back next to
Yeah,
crash.
Short session to order. First up, quick discussion items is appointments. Mr. Brown.
Yep. I guess we're just picking up where we left off, eh? Oh, I would say it's on the first page,
3/4 of the way down.
where it's dark pink. Is that correct?
That is correct. And the first one is, every effort will be made to appoint council members. The other one is, each member shall be appointed to no less than one.
I guess I'll start with that. I like the top one. If there is a council member that does not want to be on a committee, they should have the option. So, I mean, that's a pretty cut and dry one as far as I'm concerned.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I do.
One down.
You want me to keep going to the next one? The next one being I'm the appointee to the Fire Authority Board. I'm the only one that's an elected official that's currently on the fire board. Fruitland has chosen not to, Whitehall Township has chosen not to. The board functions appropriately. It operates well. I mean, so as far as needing an appointee from council on there, so long as they come back and bring the information back to you guys and everything else, I don't see where that needs to be a definite council member or not, unless it's in the, I don't think it's in the
articles of incorporation for the fire board, so.
I would agree with that, and I think also Norm is.
You can't hear us.
You can, oh, I didn't pay attention, I said stand up, sorry.
You can't hear me?
No.
Oh, you want me to use that other voice?
Yeah, sure.
All right, I'll use that other voice. I'll break it.
Well,
That didn't help. It's not helping.
Turn that thing off. That's where it's at, right there.
I think it's that.
Tornado warning.
Yeah, nobody pays attention to it. Funny.
Thank you.
So yeah, I don't see a reason why that needs to be done. And Norm was a previous council member. He is the other Whitehall representative. He does very well. He's our
Library board.
treasurer as well, I think, on whatever. He's a appointee for something, I don't remember, I think it's treasurer, or whatever position is, CFO maybe. Yeah, so, things work well, so like I said, I don't see a reason, but again, that's just me.
I didn't see any reason, but I figured you would know if there was a reason why.
And I would let you know.
You know, but,
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of an either or, so.
I like the condition though, Jeff, about coming back and reporting.
Yeah.
I think that's important.
Yeah, I've had Pete directed, he sent Scott right? He hasn't been? Alright, I'll get on him again.
I think the solid waste authority is all elected, if I'm yeah, so if I'd like to keep it consistent, if it's all elected, I'd like to keep it consistent. And so it might, I don't know if that's part of their own documents or not, but, that would be my preference. And it's not because I'm on it, but I have experienced it and I know that they're all representing the two cities and the 4 townships. So, as elected representatives.
You don't happen to know if it is a requirement of
I
theirs?
don't believe it is a requirement
Okay.
that it be an elected official on either fire or solid waste.
I thought it was for solid waste, but regardless, everybody is Scott, so I'd like to reflect what the rest of the body is doing.
Could we do it the same way as we're talking about an effort will be made for those positions to be council members, but if we don't have a qualified person or an interested one, could we manage it the same way?
Well, you could, if you went that direction, you would just get rid of that whole sentence.
Right.
Or if you agree with Councilmember Kabala, you could just get rid of the fire authority and say that solid waste authority shall be a current member of council.
It says that must be a council member, but that's in bold, so does that mean that that's what's proposed? And what like solid waste authority in back page 4? Bold part.
That would be if it's adopted, if this
Oh.
is adopted.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why it's
So
voted
it's
in
not
the
that
ballot.
way now, that's why it's
Correct.
bold. Okay.
Yeah, at least we've consistently had electeds on solid waste authority. And it might be either part of their statutory authority, or it could be just the way they decided to operate.
Can we just remove the fire authority part of it then and say the solid waste authority needs to be a council member?
Ordinance.
That's the way it is, so.
I mean, unless changes. I mean, it used to be the fire authority board was made up of completely of members of elected officials too, and that just kind of, over the last 3-4 years, it's kind of gravitated the other direction. And everybody that's on there is, I mean, definitely, there's a learning curve with that, and the people that I got on there are learning, but from Cleveland and Whitehall Township, but,
Well, let's just leave it until it changes, I guess.
They're appointed by the council, so if the council wants to appoint somebody from the city council, then they can do that whenever there's an opening. There isn't really a term limit or anything on that.
no.
So when an opening comes and they're appointed by the council, so if somebody in the council wants to be on there, he just put in his thing and say, I wanna be considered, and then the council could decide whether or not that was who they want.
So are we just getting rid of fire authority or the whole sentence?
We just do the fire authority for now, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
We can always revisit if we have to.
Yep. Down in the next paragraph, it's about soliciting with an ad in a local newspaper during the month of, left that blank. You are looking to make appointments, if you go up to the second paragraph, the second meeting in January. So I don't know if you want to advertise in December, November, how much advance notice do you want out there? I mean, as far as the city's website and Facebook, there'll probably be something, well, probably more on the website, something permanent soliciting candidates. The website or the Facebook probably, you know, as new posts come up and comments come up, that gets pushed down. But if you want an ad in the White Lake Beacon or other local newspaper, November work?
I think November.
I think November's better than December,
Yeah.
because December, with the
Right.
holidays and everything, some people might not be paying attention to the paper as much, so.
People are paying attention to politics in November usually.
They are.
Put the ad in and they'll see that, and then they know they have to have it in by, they have to have it in by what? By January 1?
Yeah. That way you've got plenty of time to look at a list of candidates.
Could we also put it in the last, the October newsletter? Isn't there an October newsletter
Yeah,
that would go out? Put
Yep.
it in there as well?
that's why we say the social media platform, so you're right, the newsletter,
Okay.
Facebook, and
Got it.
the website. On to page 2. And then I guess, Councilmember Sickinger, you just mentioned a deadline. But we're requiring all candidates to complete an approved application with a deadline during the month of blank staff class appointees whose terms are due to expire if they want to continue to serve. So that should also be the November. And a January 1 deadline. Although below that is the or, all candidates and current members seeking reappointment shall complete a city-approved application form. So I guess you have to decide which one of those paragraphs you want before we fill in the blanks.
I think the first one's sufficient, as far for my needs. If you're already there, it's just easy to ask if you wanna continue and look at application, well, if this person wants to continue, you got new people, that the decision will have to be made based on that.
Really can't hear you guys. We can hear Councilwoman
speakers.
Hildebrand when she speaks into her microphone, but nobody else is speaking into their microphone. We can't.
And
I'm
there's
sorry.
fans out
It's
there.
these old ears, I think, is the problem, but
Can
they
you hear
can't
me
hear
now?
either.
Can you hear me now?
Are they working? Can you hear that?
Yes, they are working.
Okay, it doesn't
Alright,
sound.
so what I said is, I'm
You
happy with,
look the other way.
I'm happy with the
I know.
first one, which is all candidates shall complete, with submittal, and if you were already appointed, and your term is due to expire, you can just let them, or they call you and let you know, hey, your term's up, you wanna continue,
Like we do now.
like we do now.
I would rather have everybody fill out an application.
Can we call it an information sheet and not an application?
That's
please?
fine.
Can we? Is that okay?
But what's gonna be different from one time to another? Are they gonna add just more years of qualification, or,
Hey, I don't even know what's on it, so,
I mean, yeah, so I think,
are you interested?
As long
Yes
as,
or no?
as long as they're not assuming that it's guaranteed that they will be on it.
well, I don't know if they assume or not, but I just think if they've got one application and that should suffice. I mean, if we keep it on file, or,
I would think once and then,
yeah.
I mean, if your information significantly changes, you
Yeah,
could update it.
unless you want to update it.
instead of an information sheet, can we call it a letter of interest?
I like that.
That's good.
That's interesting.
So we're going with the top one, and their letter of interest has to be in by January 1. And then for the current board members, we'll, I guess we probably want to ask them in November.
Makes sense.
Okay, just trying to keep the Januaries and the Novembers matching up.
I guess the only big thing I have, problem I have with that, with the current members not having to fill anything out is, if they all want reappointed, nobody new can get on a board.
Not necessarily. Council can still, if you have 2 members on a board that want to be reappointed, and you've got 5 other applicants, you can still choose any of the 7. As Mr. Zemer pointed out, it's not automatic that you get reappointed.
And it is right now.
No, it's not.
No.
They all come to the city council for approval. None of them are automatic without your approval.
More or less, but
It seems easier to me that if you're gonna look at, easier to compare, I guess, if you've got one of the person that's currently there and one of somebody else who's not on, but would like to get on. Have, I can go either way, I guess.
I say that I mean, they're not gonna throw the letters of interest away, so I mean, they'd have a file for whatever committee that is there, and the person that's on it, letter of interest would probably be left in that file along with the new ones they put in there. If that person decides to get off mid-year, you've got other people you can draw from the file, so.
And I would think in the future, if we have a board that's got 2 members that are incumbents, if you will, and 3 that are seeking new, we would just list all 5 of them. You'll have letters of interest from 3 of them, and a note that these 2 are incumbents and have served 2 years, 10 years, whatever that might be, just so you have a little background on it.
I don't really have, it doesn't matter which way it is, I guess. I mean, we've already done a 12-year term limit. So I don't know what we decided as far as people that are already on goes. When they come up the next time, if they're already past 12 years on a board, does that mean they're done? Or are they grandfathered because they're already there? If they have interest. Just, something needs to be clarified one way or the other, or like I said, if everybody on a particular board that's already on it wants to be reassigned to it, there's no place for a new person to be able to get onto that board.
Other than term limits.
Yeah. But when we did the 12-year term limit, we didn't specify whether somebody that might already be on a board that's already been on it for 15 years, I mean, you're not gonna take them off of it right now. But when that term ends, that person should be done for at least 12 months, by the way we wrote that. But we didn't specify anything like that, so.
Well, you're right, maybe, because up in paragraph 3, members are ineligible for reappointment to the same board, authority, etc., having served 12 or more consecutive years. So, yeah, I guess we haven't determined if that starts when this is adopted for 12 years, or if when they come up for reappointment, I think is what you're asking. Let's say they come up, most of them come up in odd years. So in 2025, actually, I think we've got them in every year. So in this fall, assuming this gets adopted before fall, then that would be the question. If we look at appointees who are up for or desire reappointment and have already served 12 years, are we starting, and I don't know if we've got some magic verbiage for that. But I know what you're saying, I just don't know how to put it down, if that's what council wants to do. Are you gonna start the 12 years this fall, or has it already started retroactively?
I think we should go retroactive.
That's what this says.
I would say so.
I think it's, reading this, that's how it would
Okay,
apply right now.
Yep.
Change it.
all right, so this fall, if somebody served 12 or more consecutive years, then they
Cannot.
would be ineligible for reappointment. Okay,
But they could go from, say, solid waste to planning commission
correct,
without any
Yep.
wait time.
correct.
Or something like that.
The next choice, and Mayor, stop me if we get to the limit, is residency is preferred, or you shall be a resident 6 months prior to appointment.
Sorry, can we just a point of clarification on the, talking about the deadline of the letter of interest?
Yes?
Did you say January?
Yes.
And then we are discussing appointments at the second meeting in January. Does that give enough time to put everything together?
Yeah, it shouldn't be that difficult. I mean, we'll be putting things together as we go along. So yeah, that would give us 3 weeks. And I think that some of the boards do not require residency. I know Planning Commission allows a number of resident or non-residents, but it does ask for, you know, business people, builders, contractors, kind of a diverse background. And I believe with the Construction Board of Appeals, only one of the 3 members is a resident. There again, you want contractors and builders to sit on that board. So it just gets a little more difficult as far as the field of candidates if you restrict to residency, but you know, I get it. You prefer to have residents, the people that live here and pay taxes and shop here, being on the boards.
Which essentially is the first one, says preferred.
Yeah, yep. I think if all things being equal and you've got a resident and a non-resident, you would go with the resident.
I agree, as long as they were both qualified.
So Van Bergen and Vidal are gonna be in that committee then,
Well, not Dave. He stepped down from Planning Commission.
That's right.
I don't even know if Brad is on that one.
Brad's not.
I don't know if they've ever met since I've been here, Construction Board of Appeals, maybe once.
Mm.
So yeah, the membership slips me, but I think 2 of them are non-residents. The next is training. The first one is you shall get training if there's some sort of training available. I mean, there's kind of that caveat. Or training is not mandatory but highly encouraged. I know that we get a lot of newbies, and I think Jeff, you're at the learning curve. I don't think we're extremely complicated as far as any of our boards. I mean, training would definitely be nice, but I know a lot of people volunteer just to get to the meetings, let alone go away for a weekend of training or a week worth of training. But it's your call.
I would say encouraged. I mean, I certainly took advantage of it when I was on council before, but I know everybody's schedules are busy, and I know that for me, even with my part-time employment, it's busy.
And
I
I think,
agree with Dan.
and I think planning and council are probably the most active as far as training. There's really not training for brownfield. There is, we do belong to a number of associations where typically it's just out, like for planning, I'm a member of the American Planning Association. We used to have all 9 planning commissioners, so we're paying 10 dues, getting the same material. So now I'm just a member, so if there's stuff that comes along as far as training or flyers, then, you know, I'll pass that out. So we'll go with the,
Not mandatory, but highly recommended, or highly encouraged.
It's available, yeah.
Alrighty. Now those were easy. Relatively. The next one is appointees shall be removed or subject to removal by council if their attendance falls below a certain percent, or a vacancy shall be deemed to exist in any appointed office if an appointee is absent from regular meetings, unless excused by the authority, board, commission, or committee. So the second one is more of a number of meetings missed, and it's up to that board to basically say you're removed, kind of what the city council's got right now. You can excuse a council member, well, we had a council member, a mayor, who would, well, two of them, who would winter in Florida, and the council basically excused them for, 6 to 8 meetings in a row. So that's your prerogative. And I guess that, trying to stay a little bit consistent, maybe that might be the better one. Let the boards police themselves. Because they would be pretty good judge as to whether or not the absence is not detrimental to the actual service they provide that board when they are there.
That seems like a little level of micromanaging for us to say that. But are they self-policing, Scott? Have they been doing that? Or do they need some assistance from us?
No, what has happened in the past is when we do get to appointments, and we sit down with the mayor, we will a lot of times say, this person's only made 30% of the meetings. Not that that's an automatic disqualifier, but that's a consideration. A lot of times it's been, well, they've missed 30%, but nobody else has submitted an application. So maybe we'll go with somebody who's missed a lot versus nobody. So they haven't policed themselves, but it's been, staff has kept an eye on that. And we have talked to some members, like, where you been the last 3 months?
Could we have, like, on some boards, probably not on all of them, but have an alternate? Like, say, on a certain board, and then have somebody in the.
I don't like that. We had that with the zoning board of appeals. We had, I think, 3 alternate members, and that just got real confusing. Basically, I send out a notice, like I do with any special meeting, is can you make the meeting? And if 3 can't, then I pull in those 3, but if the meeting, if it gets adjourned, or the other ones come back, and it just got real awkward. I don't think it's rare that we haven't had a quorum for any meetings. I think maybe LDFA once, and there wasn't anything on their agenda, but as far as planning and council and ZBA, we've always had a quorum. Not always 100% attendance, but enough to have a quorum and make a decision. So it just gets awkward.
Just a thought.
Good idea, it's been tried before.
Okay. Doesn't work.
I think the second one gives us the committees, I mean, they know, we don't. If there's an issue on planning or one of them, then we need to excuse somebody. That is easy to do.
Yeah.
So,
And here, it's automatic. You miss 3 and your board doesn't choose you, you're off.
unless they're excused,
Correct. Yep.
which puts the onus on the person to do it.
So the second one with 3 consecutive? I haven't heard or seen any yeses or nos on that one.
It sounds good to me.
Okay,
Not.
What? I thought I nodded just.
okay, maybe I didn't get down to that one. All right,
All right, at this point, I'd like to move on to our next.
So we're done with this.
I think we might be done.
We got,
you're actually done with all of it.
yeah,
There may be some,
One more time?
Yeah.
we'll get a final to vote on maybe at the next meeting, if possible.
I do believe so.
So Scott, on that page 4, the weather fire board, I think that must be out.
Yep.
All right, next is the commercial rehab, habilitation.
Yeah, maybe this kind of came up at, council indicated a desire to move forward with commercial rehab. And what we could do is line it up right with the existing downtown commercial rehab, so basically all of Colby Street would qualify. But going through the act, because now you get into the details if you're moving forward, it states that no exemptions can be granted after December 31 of 2025. Puts a real short window on things, so I guess, it's not really a big deal staff-wise to go through it. But is it really gonna reap any benefits if we've only got 18 months to provide, any potential tax breaks for commercial development out there? I'm not aware of any pending. I mean, if we had something, kind of on the hot burner, then I'd say yes, let's get it through so that this project can go forward. But I'm not sure if it's worth it at this point.
So what is involved in getting it started?
City council would have to have a public hearing to establish the district. You have to notify everybody in the district. And then after the public hearing, you would adopt the district. And then it would be basically the state law that would take over kind of from there as far as people making applications. So once the district is established, somebody can come to the city council and say, hey, I'm doing this commercial development. I would like my taxes frozen, is basically what it's done, so that the improvements are tax-free for up to 10 years. And then you would have to approve that. Then it goes to the state, and the state would have to approve it as well. So there's kind of 3 big steps.
I'd like to see, I don't know, maybe that'd be an incentive for some current landowners to make some improvements.
It could be.
Is there anything else that can be done with this?
Not really.
I mean, it's kind of a one.
Well, we talked about a commercial corridor, which is another tax increment financing.
Yeah.
But a lot of that is restricted to public facilities and improvements. So this is really the best thing out there at the current time. And I haven't heard anything that they're gonna renew it or come up with something different.
Well, if they do, I guess we can bring it back.
I'd like to explore it. I'd like to at least maybe survey folks in the corridor to see if they're interested. Maybe some
Maybe
folk,
do the-
maybe some are waiting.
Maybe do that first.
Yeah, exactly.
Before we proceed.
Well, I'd like to see if somebody's been waiting and now, hey, this is a
I mean, if there's
chance.
any interest, yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
If there's any interest, we might move forward, but if there's none, it's,
It wouldn't include a single family residence, would it?
No, we're-
Home, right?
There are certain residential developments that qualify, but I don't know if any of them on Colby would at this point.
But if somebody wanted to take their single-family residence along there and make a home business or some type of business, that would qualify, right? So that could potentially be one incentive.
We could
Yeah,
survey, but I bet you I can tell you what that survey is gonna come back. If we say, would you like the city to implement a program where improvements can be tax-free, pretty sure you're gonna get a bunch of yeses. I'm not, like I said, I'm not aware of anybody discussing improvements. And it's really not a huge deal, other than a public hearing and notifications to establish it. If you wanna give it a shot, we can give it a shot.
I'd like to.
again,
Okay.
it's one budget, but yeah,
Okay,
yes.
All right,
Maybe it'll come back. Maybe we'll repeal it.
let's move on to the next one. Under housing. Andy.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Scott, for doing the inventory that I had suggested was probably a likely first step to look at. Do we have any room for affordable housing in our community? And keep in mind that that's not necessarily income-based housing as much as looking at providing housing that our seniors and our young people can afford, because that's an issue, across the country. I really appreciated the Muskegon County housing study, and I would like to, if at all possible, connect with them if we have haven't already, to see is there a way, cause I know it was a long study, but there was one place where they talked about like having a community, segments of a larger plan. I mean, and it looks like too, we've got vacant lots, we've got some that have several acreage, certainly we don't own them all, but, doesn't mean that we can't chat with these folks. There's a 6-acre parcel, so it looks like there's a mix of properties that might lend themselves to some different types of affordable housing, like maybe a co-housing unit and, things like that, so. But I'd like to connect with Muskegon and see if there's any way that we can work together with them, and.
I'll contact the county administrator and see who the point person for that would be.
Okay, and then Scott, if there's any, readily available information, quick available to see, if some of those plots are more suitable to, certain level density, that would be helpful too, maybe. So, but appreciate the information, that was really helpful to me to see that. For a small city that we might be able to provide some housing.
And then is there funding?
Well, there may be, I don't really know, I mean, there might be different, I'd like to also see if there's other entities. I know I had talked with, what's the entity in Nuevo County? There are different nonprofit organizations that we can partner with to look at, different types of housing. So, is it True North? I'm not sure if that's the one I'm thinking about.
I did talk to somebody in the know, in regards to the housing development up in Shelby. That is heavily subsidized by Peterson Farms, and they did get a federal grant for assistance. But Peterson Farms is trying to provide housing for their employees, and there's some pretty stiff qualifications to get into that housing. I don't think income-based is a big issue, because Peterson knows what they're paying. But as far as they want to make sure that the development stays well maintained.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
But I think I think the price is 200,000 plus.
okay.
So nowadays, that seems like that's
Pretty much the
affordable.
norm. I mean,
Yeah, it
good
does.
luck. I mean, from a kid that had a dad that owned a real estate agency for 50 years, the market is the market.
Oh, I know. On the other hand, there are, that we're gonna have to tackle that, we have, a high proportion of seniors, who are looking to get out of their bigger homes maybe, but hanging on for the moment.
Yeah, I mean, they're gonna get, they're not gonna wanna take a hit on the amount of money they get when they sell their home that they own either. I mean, they're gonna have to move in somewhere else that's expensive, like.
But we need to
assisted
have
living or
places,
something like that.
we need to have places for them, and I know, some of the options that were mentioned, I know would be, of interest to some of the, the people that I know in the senior community, so maybe even me, you never know. So, but yeah, I appreciate that, and Scott, certainly if there's a way that I can help with the information, that I can do too.
I was curious with that list of, I don't have it here to look at, but in that listing, you had all the lots that were not owned by adjoining property owners. How many of those were there?
It says there's 6.
Oh, it's only 6. I thought
Yeah,
it was more.
there weren't a lot. I mean, there's a lot of vacant lots.
Right.
But, Bob owns the house on lot 1
Right.
and the vacant lot on lot 2. Some of those actually, the houses straddle the property line.
Yeah.
So I discounted those because I didn't think those would be as readily available. They probably have a vacant lot for a reason.
Yeah, there's a reason they want a lot
They
now.
don't really want a neighbor or neighbors.
Looking at your window.
Well, and two, for any of these possible locations, we would want to, get some idea of, public interest and support.
I think if we get, we've got Forest Hills subdivision with 18 lots. If the council really wants to push affordable housing, you can probably be very flexible in the sell price on that. And as far as infrastructure development, because that starts to add up when you start putting in streets and water and sewer and the other utilities, that's up to them. But if we get the right person, we can work on that, I think, make it attractive.
Oh, I think that'd be great. I will, I'm gonna read through the county study again. If you haven't read through the entire presentation, it is long, but there's a lot of information that I think applies to our community.
Yeah.
Thanks, Scott.
All right. I think we're ready to move on to the Tifa operating. Mr. Brown.
I don't even know where to start. I'm not in favor of the TIFL organization and the way it's presently run. I think for what TIFL was originally designed for and for what we're using it for now are two completely different things. I think the original intent of TIFL was to help struggling small cities, survive by, helping people out tax-wise, and we've expanded this thing to include all the biggest taxpayers in the city. It's just ended up being a big slush fund to, use for whatever the TIFA board decides to use it for. And it's limited to only being allowed to be used for stuff that's within the TIFA district, which, I understand that, but I don't understand why it was expanded in the first place from the original downtown area, and why all the industrial plants and everything have been included in it. I mean, everything that gets added into the TIFA district is another taxpayer that isn't putting any money into the general fund. So I just don't like the whole thing. I guess the biggest thing, the only thing we get to vote on for TIFA is we approve their budget.
And their board members.
Okay, and their board members. Anything else, all the other departments, we approve their budgets. But when something comes up, we also approve the bids for what they're doing, like streets or water or sewer or anything else. But when TIFA wants to spend $360,000 to buy Big John's so we can make another park that we don't need, they don't have to bring it to us for approval. I don't think that's right. There's just a bunch of things, the big ticket items that TIFA spends their money on that I don't agree with. I don't know how to change it, or if anybody else agrees with me or not. I just wanted to get it out there. I just don't like the way the whole thing is operated. 2 or 3 of the people that are on the TIFA board don't even reside in the city. I don't think we should be having people make decisions that aren't residents.
I do agree. I do agree with Scott on most of his points in that. What I think the big ticket items that we're doing should be approved by the council. I just see too much money going to that and not going to streets and so on. And I've heard the argument about, well, if we take it out of TIFA, then we got to pay taxes over to here and here and to here. But still, look at our roads. Look at our, we are going to get the sidewalks fixed, but the people in town are not complaining that they need another park. They're complaining that the streets are so cruddy.
Well, just to back up for a point of clarification, the whole intent of the Tax Increment Finance Authority wasn't to help out people with their taxes. It was a method to capture taxes and reinvest in a designated area for economic growth, job creation, tax base. And the original District 1 of the city's TIFA was the south end, the Helmet facilities. A couple of years later, they expanded it north to include the downtown, with the thought that the downtown basically didn't have sufficient tax base to do all the improvements, the parking, the public parking, the streetscape, etc., but we could draw that Helmet money north, if you will. That's the 600-pound gorilla. As far as bids, now you're kind of usurping their authority if there's some dollar amount where you decide that you're going to have the approval over that. I haven't heard the complaints about LDFA or Brownfield. They all three pretty much operate identical. Just obviously the TIFA is the largest because they've been the longest with the biggest tax base.
And Scott, Tifa does give money back through pass-through back to city budget, correct?
To all taxing
To all
jurisdictions.
taxing jurisdictions, including the general fund. If I remember right, you said 200 and some thousand.
Probably a little more than that because we passed through 500,000, and I think the general fund is 55% of the total tax capture. So the vets, the county, the library, which is now opted out because the state law allowed them to. Fire authority, we do pass back a big chunk of
The
money back.
ambulance authority.
I mean, we could easily spend that 500,000, but we kind of recognized we took money away from those taxing jurisdictions. We, came up with a mechanism to ease the pain.
So to say nothing comes back is not correct. They take a portion and do projects with it, and the rest comes back to the taxing jurisdictions. So, as far as I'm concerned.
The thing I don't like about the whole deal is the 7 of us up here were elected by the people of the city to run the city and look after its finances.
Mhm.
You got 9 or 11 or whatever people it is on a board for TIFA or for LDFA or for Brownfield that weren't elected by the people that are making the decisions to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on things. And I don't think it's right.
Well, and I understand that point, but not this 7 members, because none of you were here, and even, none of you were on council back in the early 80s. The city council at that time established those boards, as well as planning commission, zoning board of appeals, and you basically said you have the authority to act on our behalf. And that's what they've been doing.
It's no different than the ambulance authority and the fire authority. There are certain people that are put on those boards. The money comes in. Granted, it's a millage versus general tax dollars, but it's still money that comes in, and we spend the money as budget. We do a budget and spend money. I mean, Scott will tell you. All the stuff we went through the ambulance authority, same thing. The money comes in. That board is tasked with how to spend it in the right and appropriate way, and they do it.
Same with the solid waste authority.
Same with the solid waste authority. Anything with an authority after it, it's essentially the same thing as if it's a name thing, it's essentially almost the same thing as the DDA, which is the Downtown Development Authority. It's a word game. So that one actually probably describes better than what TIFA does. What happens? It's a downtown development group, and that's what they do with the funds.
I'm just tired of getting questioned by people about, why the sidewalks are crap, why the roads are crap. And I keep saying, because we don't have the money to fix it. And they say, how come we don't have the money? Part of the reason we don't have the money is because all the money that goes into TIFA isn't going into the general fund.
But keep in mind, only half of that money is being diverted away from city taxes. The other is money being diverted from the fire authority, the veterans, so we're able to capture more taxes. Now, again, it's limited in where it can be spent and what it can be spent on. But if you got rid of TIFA, then there would be a less net pot. And I don't know if this is conversation for a little bit later, because Brownfield, LDFA, and TIFA, they do have a meeting Thursday. The LDFA and the TIFA are due to expire with the current fiscal year, at the end of the current fiscal year. My recommendation is that the LDFA can probably not renew. I'm kind of jumping the gun, but since it's timely, because we have pretty much met all of our obligations in the industrial park. The last thing that Brian would like to do is resurface the roads. And we think we have about $350,000 for that. We might have to borrow some from elsewhere to get those roads done, then we can be done with the LDFA. The Tifa could still have a lot more to do. We've got a lift station, we've got Benston Street, talking about streets. Actually, if you look at the Tifa district, there aren't a lot of streets in the Tifa district. It kind of gerrymandered all over the place. The main reason for that was if you had more than 100 residents inside the Tifa district, then you'd have to have a resident advisory committee. So now you got another layer of government. The brownfield will kind of self-expire once all of the due care obligations are done, and that's probably 3 years away. And right now we're capturing close to $1 million in the brownfield, and I think I pointed out at the budget work session, in a few years, again, that's capturing everybody's taxes, you're gonna have over $400,000 additional in the city's general fund because now the brownfield is done. And I think certainly some members of bond council would think that that's a great place to live and a great development. And with the expiration of the LDFA, you're gonna have over $250,000 going into the general fund. So as they expire and as they complete their task and they expire, you are gonna have kind of a pretty sizable infusion of cash into the general fund in the next 2 to 3 years.
On the question of extending it or not, is that, whose decision is that? Is that the board or is that the council or who?
The board, and I think Will's looked at this, my understanding is that the Tifa board will ask you to move forward with a notice of intent for extending the time period, which will actually require a new development plan and a tax increment financing plan. And you would have a public hearing, then it would be up to the city council whether or not it would be extended. So you would have the right at that time to vote yes or no.
They recommend and we
Yeah.
decide.
Okay.
I do think it's important to point out, I think one of the reasons Tifa is the subject of so much angst is that its projects tend to be a little more visible, like in the downtown maybe.
Well, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
They want a vibrant downtown and a strong industrial base. With the Tifa, the DDA is downtown. The Tifa is kind of the second generation, which also included downtowns and industry. And then the LDFA came along, and that's just industry. And you have the commercial corridors, and you got there used to be probably 8 or 9 different types. And in 2018, they were recodified, and I think they shrunk it down to 3 or 4. I mean, the ones that were in existence can continue for a certain period of time.
Well, I'm not necessarily being negative about that as much as, I mean, all of the things that have been highly criticized, and they're criticized by people that I see on the streets as well, are projects that the city has looked to do for years and decades. And so it's not as if any of them are surprises. I do think with some of the bigger ones, given that they might have a more of an impact, if just a little bit more, there's probably not likely any way to involve us or the public a little bit more on some of the bigger ones that might be, people don't like change, and when they see these big changes, I think it's kind of hard. So I'm not saying where I'm at with it, but the pocket part, the mixed use apartments, the purchasing Big John's, those purchasing Napa, I mean, those have been, Steve, you probably remember way back decades ago.
They were voted on by the council, not necessarily everybody on the council agreed with it. It passed by a majority of the council. So there may have been 3 that voted no, and they got outvoted by 4. That very well could have happened in either of those cases, so.
Well, and we didn't deal in specifics and bids and things, but they were the concepts and the
Right.
what I mean.
We need to
open this up for a public comment at this point. So if there's anyone that likes to make a public comment, state your name and step up to the podium.
Hello. I don't know if it's gonna turn off or what, but you probably
Yeah,
did.
just speak loud.
Okay. My name is Martin Ryerson. I own Tycon Home Builders, and talked to Steve. He invited me down here because I'm interested in affordable home development. So I'm very interested in what you were talking about, Tanya, and just want to be involved with that process. And if you guys have any property you might want to sell to help in a development like that, I'd be interested. That's about it, I guess. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Alright, my name's Christina Rumden. I just want to say I agree with Scott Brown. Thank you for what you had to say. I went to the 4th of July down at Good Wrench, and so many people were complaining that I never heard one person say, oh my gosh, I'm so glad this is being built. I've not heard one person say, I'm so glad this pocket park is being built downtown. I have not heard one person say, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that Big John's got bought out. You're not listening. That committee is not listening to the public. So go ahead and do what you want, but then you're complaining that there's not people that come to this meeting or people that don't voice their concerns because you don't listen. Or excuse me, that committee doesn't listen. So there's definitely different ways that can be handled. But there's a definite problem with that committee. Different ways that that money could be spent to benefit other people in this committee, all ages. Where's the stuff for the teenagers to go do? Why can't they do something like that? Or, I don't know. But also I was very disappointed. We went down there, obviously Good Wrench, and the bathrooms were not open. I cannot get an answer as to why the bathrooms were closed. There was no sign saying where to go other than closed. That was a huge problem down there as well too.
Anyone else? All right, we'll adjourn this meeting.
Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, first up is approval of the agenda.
I'll move for the approval of the agenda.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in
Oh.
favor?
Oh, go ahead, sorry. Carry on.
All those in favor say yes.
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 Those say no. Agenda is approved. Next is the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? I have two questions, comments, whatever. One on, accounts payable, first thing on there, aquatic doctors. Didn't we install bubblers that were supposed to take care of the algae problem, so we weren't gonna have to do the algae treatment?
Nope, it's a combination of the bubblers and the algae treatment to try and minimize.
We've got to get the corner down, so it'll be working better.
Okay,
Depending on which way the wind blows.
And they tend to get clogged.
okay, the other one I have isn't on accounts payable, it's on, Playhouse finances. I'm not really sure I understand it fully, but, this is the financials for just the White Lake Youth Theater, correct?
No, I believe it's the whole summer season, isn't it?
Here to me, it's just the youth theater.
Okay. Yep, this is for the White Lake Youth Theater.
Is that what's called wind willows?
Yeah, that's a number of the, that's the name of the play that they put on.
I don't, you know,
But we can get the full, event breakdown, I think we have that.
I guess all I was looking at was, I don't know if this was something that was put in here to make it look like the Playhouse is making money or not, but, I mean, this is only one thing, that the White Lake Youth Theater thing is only one thing that is going on at the Playhouse. There are other things that go on at the Playhouse too.
And we can get you that list, and some of them make money and some of them lose money.
Okay, so I guess, I just don't understand why we were given this and not given everything, but.
Well, that was my misunderstanding.
That's all I have.
In the same subject, in my looking at it, it looks like revenues are higher than the expenses. I don't really understand it either, it's kind of confusing. So you get revenues of 15,846, and it looks like total bills of like 900.
Well, if you go to the,
8,500.
Our rights is 17,861, expenses of 9,500, and income of 83,39.
Oh, okay.
Unless I'm reading it wrong.
no, if you go to the far right, that gives you your grand totals.
Okay,
Each of those columns are 4 different events as part of the youth theater.
When do we normally get the whole financial picture from the Playhouse? Do we not get that before the CPA gives it? Does the audit, or do we normally get it before that?
You get a budget every spring to adopt. And it will have
Right.
summer theater, it will have all the revenues and all the expenditures, not broken down to this detail. And you will get the audit probably September, October.
And just for the publics, how many students roughly, or how many kids we got involved in that theater program? Any idea?
I think there's, I was gonna say a couple hundred, 150.
I feel like it depends on the class or the play, but.
Okay. I'm just
total, rough as that,
teenager age.
all the way
Kids.
from like toddler.
Yeah, well, okay, all right. Wonderful.
Any other questions on the consent agenda? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Or say no.
No.
Consent agenda is approved. Next, messages from the mayor, city manager. Let's start with the council. Steve?
Yeah, the only thing I have is, complaints. No, I had some complaints about Goodrich, about the restrooms there. Okay, not that they're closed at 10, but that those bathrooms are kind of gross. And, the men's restroom, I didn't go in the women's, but the men's restroom, the door is split in half, going into the stall. And, I think we ought to be able to fix that, that's probably the most popular park as far as visitors in the city. Everybody, a lot of people use Long Field, but that's mostly local people, and I think that we need to put a little better face on those bathrooms down there. They're not very good, and I don't know, as far as keeping them clean, who's responsible for that? I suppose that's Brian's group.
Yep, Public Works is down there Monday through Friday, at least once a day. And then we've got a weekend crew, it's either a Saturday or Sunday, and we also ask the marina staff to go in there and kind of police it.
That's what I was gonna ask.
So,
I was hoping that they would
We do
be-
try and stay on top of it, but people do not treat public restrooms the way they treat their own restrooms.
Right,
And that door was busted,
Yeah.
that's something that's not fixable, we've had to order a replacement.
oh, we did, okay,
Yep.
so
Concrete.
we're on it. Okay.
Right?
Concrete?
Yeah.
You know, they will advertise vandal proof, there's no
Yeah.
such thing. It's, maybe vandal resistant,
Mhm.
but, yeah, I mean, they're public restrooms. We do the best we can, but
Right.
again, all it takes is somebody going in there 10 minutes after the crew leaves and cleans it to make it unsightly again.
And I think the fisherman dock is all done now, right?
We have some railing still to put up,
Okay.
and we have talked to a local contractor about doing something with the railing along the, I guess, the step down boardwalk.
Mhm.
That kind of goes from there halfway up into the marina,
Right,
so we're looking at improving that as well. So
Okay.
a couple of small items on the fishing dock.
okay, and then the grass, they're working on planting new grass, or
It,
Yeah.
kind of a mess.
Yep.
Kind of a weed bed. Anyway, that's all I have, just thinking of this part. Thank you.
Mr. Brown?
Well, I'm not really sure how to go about starting this. There's been a lot of discussion, talk, whatever, over the last 6 months, or 6 weeks, excuse me, about the recent, altercation between our mayor and his neighbor. I don't know how to go about talking about it the right way. It's something that should have been brought up by the council probably a couple meetings ago, if not the last meeting for sure. I've had dozens of phone calls, emails, messages, what have you, from a lot of very upset citizens of our city about how our reputation is being harmed. I don't know if that's the right word or not. It's something that I think that we as a council and the city staff should have addressed right away. It hasn't been addressed, so I'm gonna bring it up now, and where it's gonna go. I have a letter in front of me that was written by one of our residents that is unavailable to come to the meeting. And they asked me to please read at the council meeting and file an official meeting record. The recent altercation between Amy Josephson and Mayor Stephen Salter can only be described as a cover-up by City Hall. Given requests for information about this event by members of the Whitehall City Council were denied for weeks and unable to answer citizen inquiries is indefensible. However, news of the event has traveled hundreds of miles, disgracing the city reputation and trust in city officials. Now all charges against Mrs. Josephson by Mr. Salter's actions have apparently been dropped as the case is closed. The only case open is between Mrs. Josephson and a Whitehall City police officer citing her resisting arrest. Mr. Salter punched Mrs. Josephson in the face with a fist in retaliation for being pushed from behind to remove him from her property. In what can, I don't understand, I'll just read it the way it is. It says in what can, at the very least, I guess if you read it right, be described as an ungentlemanly act. It is a violation of a basic tenet that all men are taught from childhood that under no circumstances do you hit a female ever, especially a disabled elderly woman. In addition, when these altercations occur, both parties may be subject to charges of assault, no matter the sex, gender of either. Claims of self-defense by Mr. Salter are moot at best, especially in light of his public proclamations of his time as a veteran of the war in Vietnam. Seriously, Mr. Salter, you survived the North Vietnamese army and the Viet Cong guerrillas to come home and find it necessary to punch an elderly, obviously mentally disabled woman. It is incumbent upon the members of the Whitehall City Council to demand his forthright resignation from council and be removed by a vote of the council in order to assure the citizenry of Whitehall that such lapses of personal discipline will not be tolerated. That was submitted by Mr. Gerald Rowe. I'll leave it at that, and if it comes up as a discussion item somewhere along the line here, so be it.
So you have?
That's all I have, thank you.
Jeff?
Couple things. One, I need to be excused from the next meeting as I do not have work coverage and I will not be available to make it.
I'll make a motion to excuse Jeff Armstrong from the next meeting.
Second.
Moved in second, is there any discussion? All those in favor say yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Those say no. You're excused.
Thank you. To go on what Steve was saying about the fishing platform, I've been down at Goodrich Park. I'm kind of turning into my dad. He was down there all the time. I mean, he had his spot. There are a lot of people utilizing that platform. Not just fishing. I watched, it was kind of cool the way it's built. I watched a mom and her, it's got to be 3 years old, wandering around because they put that mesh up. The kid couldn't pitch himself in the lake. She was sitting there and he was wandering all over the place. So kudos. I'm glad it's finally done. It's well used and I'm happy about that. Discussion item about the toilets down at Goodrich Park during the 4th of July. That, if I'm correct, that closes at 10 o'clock on a good night anyways, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that would have been closed anyways. I also, 4 toilets that we had, Kirkstra toilets we had put down, or was at, in the new parking lot. Okay. So they were available. If we need a few more, I would just assume people break those toilets in our property.
then I think that's it.
Yes.
I'd like to start out by commending the city for the great work that they did on the storm cleanup. It's, with as much damage as we had done, I think we recovered pretty quickly from it, and it was a good job. On something not quite as pleasant, I had written something last week that I'm going to read here, and it relates to what Scott said. This is what I wrote. There's been an elephant in the room for about 6 weeks that city employees and city council have not talked about. But city residents and outsiders have been talking about it. It's even been reported on television, so the cover-up has not been very effective. Of course, I'm referring to the incident in late May on the 100 block of Livingston involving our mayor. Well, twice last week, I was asked or told that as part of city council, I'm part of the problem because I've not spoken about it publicly. And that seems to be true, and I felt bad about that. So I made up my mind it wouldn't be silent any longer. And the mayor needs to address the issue and needs to be held accountable. And then yesterday, I got a letter, which I would like to read also. This is from Dr. Sandra Gibbs. It says, I'm writing this as I'm unable to attend this council meeting. As a research and consulting psychologist, I have worked with many leaders of the city, the state, the U.S. federal government. As a U.S. federal senior executive staff, I have provided leadership coaching for those that held some of the highest positions in government. I have also worked with dozens of corporate leaders. In my years of providing guidance in restructuring of business processes current with changes in leadership positions, I have never experienced any leader at the lowest level ever using physical violence to deal with an unresolved conflict, let alone a rural small town municipal mayor punching an elderly, mentally ill citizen in the face and leaving her lying in the grass with a bloody nose. The extreme impact of this event became apparent to me immediately when citizens quickly shared with what had occurred. Misinformation spread when the initial encounter was hidden by officials in City Hall and appeared incorrectly in the press. Any case between Stephen Salter and Amy Josephson is closed according to the Muskegon County District Court records with no charges. Charges remain against Mrs. Josephson filed by Officer Kevin Namender. However, we have a mayor being described as unfit for office and shocking behavior as described to me by high-ranking Michigan Department of Human Health and Human Services official. High-ranking Michigan Department of Health and Human Services official. City Council members request an immediate removal of Stephen Salter as not only mayor of Whitehall, but as a member of the Whitehall City Council and a member of every committee that he has placed himself on. He has shown himself not to be stable enough for his job, nor as the image we want to portray to the rest of the world. Sandra Gibbs. And those are not my feelings, that's what I was given by a citizen.
Is that all?
That's all.
Yep.
So I don't have any letters, but I was also planning to speak on this. And so I made some notes because I wanted to keep my thoughts together. So please bear with me as I read. I also agree that this matter should have been addressed long before now. Many of us have been witness to the mayor's aggressive manner and easily provoked temper during council meetings. And then recently involved in an incident where he admittedly punched a woman in the face and said that she fell to the ground is in retaliation for allegedly being punched by her in his back. For me, this display of a complete lack of self-control ending in violence is simply unacceptable from a public official. It not only reflects poorly on him as an individual, but it's damaging to our city, our council, and our community. This show of angry aggression sends the very dangerous message that such behavior is permissible. It's not. As representatives of this council and voices for our community, we have to address this issue. Therefore, I want the mayor to take responsibility for his action, and in what I believe to be in the best interest of our community, I request that the mayor resign from his position as mayor and from city council. That's all I have.
Daniel.
I am going to talk about two things. One, the storm cleanup. I want to echo just the idea or the efforts that I saw of everybody working together. I think it's amazing that no one was hurt. It was a very quick and violent storm, and I think I would also ask us to get our siren back. I know I didn't have any warning. Luckily, I wasn't one of the more severely impacted, but I do think that some of the folks who were in some of the severely impacted neighborhoods, I just think they were lucky that they survived. So I think we need to look at a bigger plan that does include the siren. I think we need to look at a number of different options to make sure that we're warning our residents, because I don't think this is the last time we're gonna have severe weather like this. I think, honestly, the siren, I heard it in 1998 and I went down into my basement. So for folks, and I live in a house that is plaster, with plaster walls. So I heard it and went down in my basement. I think I just think we need to have a plan for emergencies going forward. I think everybody did well, but I think we're lucky that nobody was hurt. And I think one of the things I wanted to mention about, I often have walked in the parade. I was thinking that the first time I walked in the White Lake 4th of July parade was Friends of the Library when my kids were little. and that's when we had the old library here. Numerous times I've been in it, and this time I was really caught up in things and missed all the different groups I'm involved with, and I just sat with my son and my 3 grandsons, and I said, well, here, let's go early, because people put their chairs out and blankets out the night before, and I just think it's important to acknowledge this is a huge parade, and we were able to get parking. We were able to walk downtown streets and actually I saw benches that were still empty in the downtown. We sat down at Dairy Treat, an open table right around 9:30, 9:40, and I think certainly bought something, but I just think, to me, that's the value of our small town, is that, I'm not sure that would happen in another community, that you go there last minute and find a place. As for the issue with the mayor, I don't think I have an informed opinion on this at this point. I think which means that I can't probably make a determination. I think this is something that council should sit down and discuss, if that's a possibility. But I don't feel like I have the ability to put forward an opinion, because ideally I like to know all of the details before I make a decision about things.
City manager.
Yes, in accordance with local ordinances, I think I did notify council that I was doing a lot of emergency purchases, just a few really big ones, and I am required to report those back to you. Obviously with the storm, I think there's a ton of credit, and thank you, and I know all the council members agree, that it was a phenomenal effort by all of those involved in providing emergency services. Public Works Department, Police, Fire Authority, the county, the state, Red Cross was here first thing in the morning. And kind of the beauty from where I sat is I just kind of watched everybody do their thing. The Red Cross was immediately assessing all the property owners as far as alternate accommodations. And if they had gotten to a point where there was a number of residents who were going to be displaced, then they would have started looking at establishing a shelter. On consumers, DTE, all the other utilities, and I'm probably forgetting a few. I know Gnarly Heifer fed the emergency responders on Tuesday. People were dropping off donuts and Gatorade and water, and I think between the chief and I, we were supplementing those and throwing ice into them. So it was quite a great effort on the recovery. Where we're at right now, I'm still sticking with the storm, then I'll get to the details on the dollars, is that we brought in White Lake Excavating because they had the ability to immediately respond and they had the equipment far beyond what our DPW could provide. Not to mention that every tree company and every landscaper out there didn't approach me about getting a little bit of the action. But again, White Lake Excavating, they're local. We had companies from Portage and Kalamazoo and I think even on the other side of the state. So we kept it local, and we had anticipated talking to Tom Waszewski, and I know I'm butchering that name, I do it every time, and I apologize. We had anticipated that they would take 2 days to clear mirrors. They were done in 1 day. They then moved into Country Club and got rid of all the heavy stuff, and they are also looking at on the bike path. They think they have a piece of equipment that can basically drive right down that bike path and just chew up everything overhanging the bike path. So they've done a great job. We've hauled everything out to DPW. If you want to see the piles, they're 20 feet tall or more. Don't drive back there a whole lot because it's going to be muddy, and we've already had to call plenty of tow trucks the last couple of weeks. But they will be bringing in a tub grinder, which they'll have a front end loader, and they'll just drop everything in there and just chew it up in no time. So maybe a little later this fall, we'll be giving out some cheap, and I mean cheap, free wood chips in the future. It'll have a lot of material in it. But with the storm cleanup, White Lake Excavating is charging us $2,500 an hour for the cleanup crew, and the tub grinder will be $25,000 a day. We're well over $100,000 in outside costs. We've also had been keeping track of the city's expenses, and I think there's an item on the agenda a little bit later. We are still hopeful that the county did declare an emergency. That went to the governor. She has the option to likewise declare a state of emergency. If so, that opens up a number of pots that could supply reimbursement to the city. If not, there are still some other opportunities for reimbursement. The federal government is not likely to provide the financial assistance that we would be looking for. So we're tracking everything. Alyssa is keeping, and Brooke are keeping a real tight eye on all the expenses. So that's about where we're at. My original estimate to the county emergency manager was that our cleanup efforts would be, and our damages would be anywhere from $800,000 to $1 million. Luckily, there wasn't a lot of city damage. We got lucky. A lot of people didn't. Our policy has been, and we are enforcing it, that if there's a tree contractor that is on site removing brush, they need to remove it, take it all off. We're not going to handle theirs because in all likelihood they're charging the premium and they're getting reimbursed by the insurance company. We have told contractors who are putting things at the curb, no, that's yours, you need to haul it out of there. We will take care of everything else that the residents bring out to the front, and any of the street trees that obviously fell during the storm. So that's kind of the summation on that. And just to add to that, the lift station down on Lake Street got fried during the storm. We think it probably took an electrical hit, which I think there's more people I've heard complaining about the Eagles being closed than anything else. Yes, the sewer backup, water goes for the least path of resistance, and it was the Eagles. This had happened a year ago, and we had instructed them to to have a check valve installed as well as put in 4 drain plugs. Neither of those were done. We even told Scheid that we would pay for the check valve. None of that was done. They have now installed a check valve, so we're one step ahead. We've been in contact with their president in regards to filing an insurance claim. Last time it was denied. Lightning strikes are an act of God. And what unfortunately happened is it fried the main motor, and the backup motor started to work, but then the electrical panel had also fried too. So we kind of backed up twice in 2 or 3 days. It's a mess. We feel bad about it. But we'll let our insurance company determine what, if any, fault is our responsibility. And the last item, just because it's been a good 3 weeks, the air conditioning unit that keeps the central office cool fried. The unfortunate part is that ACs are always connected with your furnaces. Our furnace is old enough that the heating coil is shot and they can't get replacements. So if I want to make the women happy in City Hall, it's an $11,200 emergency purchase. It just tops the $10,000 to get the AC fixed. So we're spending some money, and it didn't take long into this fiscal year to mess it all up. So anticipate some budget amendments along the way. We have a number of sources we can draw from. It's not going to bankrupt the city. We have a lot of funds that we can draw from in order to cover our costs.
So do we have any idea how long it might take to get any word from the governor of whether there's gonna be any assistance available?
We don't. I know that the state was in again today, taking a look at damage. There's 2 representatives from the state of Michigan. Of course, one guy gets out and says Homeland Security. I'm thinking, where's this guy coming from? But that is part of his job. And the 2 state police representatives have been great. I think it was either Tuesday afternoon or Wednesday morning, there was a damage assessment team. It was basically the Ottawa County Equalization Department, because they know houses, they know values. They went through and assessed all the damage. All of that's been submitted to the governor, and we're just gonna sit back and wait. I do know that we've had some state representatives took a tour last week, and we anticipate more will, and of course we're pressing home that whatever help they can, nudge the governor towards, we would appreciate it. Right now, we're taking the position that this is on us. I don't necessarily want to say it can be on us, but we can cover our cleanup expenses. It's going to make a significant impact on our budget. So any help we get from the state, and I'll throw the feds in there too, because we haven't heard no yet, would be huge.
Question.
Yes.
Is somebody going around and noting hazardous conditions that still exist, like branches that are hanging over the road and going to come down the next time the wind blows, or,
We are,
things like that?
yeah, we are noting a number of those. I've got one in front of my house. I'm waiting for the road commission to take care of. The unfortunate part is the insurance companies have said no. They don't totally embrace a lot of tree removal. If it's on a house or a structure, they take care of it. If it's in your yard, insurance companies have not been covering those costs. And if it's hanging and not on a structure, they're kind of waiting until it falls and takes out a structure before they reimburse.
This one is hanging right over the road across the street from my house, but it's a good sized branch, and it's hanging totally vertical. And it looks like it's hanging by a thread, and if it comes down and the car is underneath, it's gonna get speeded.
I'll have Brian take a look at that, because that's gonna be a city tree most likely.
It is. It's only about 2 feet from the road, so 3 feet.
And at some point, we're gonna have to put, I figure, White Lake Excavating can do what I think they can do, or what they're expecting. I figured initially this was gonna be months into the cleanup, but they've done a great job. They're doing things in a day that we thought would take 2 to 3 days. But at some point, we're gonna have to notify our residents that on this date, we're done picking up brush. DPW's already been down Mears Avenue twice after Beiseisen's crew. and people are still drawing stuff out. So we understand that, we know that there's a lot more important things for a lot of our residents than getting the brush to the curb, but we're gonna kind of play it by ear, and at some point, we're just gonna have to say, we're done, get it out there.
Couple of things if I may.
Yep.
Talking to the staff that have showed up from, the electrical companies and all that, they have never seen a city like ours as far as people being nice, overly. I mean, there was a, kids on Country Club and,
I think just on country.
it was on
Yeah.
Country Club. They set up a lemonade stand, free to all the responders. Apparently it was found out that they weren't accepting, or they weren't charging, and apparently the kids became very wealthy that day. That it was 20s and flying to get this stuff. These power crews have just been floored by our community. One thing I wanted to mention, Scott mentioned, is the MCC thing. You probably want to bring that up, because is that the MCC damage at Muskegon Community College wasn't very.
It's actually the county campus, I think they call it the Marquette campus.
It's
the old
Baker College.
That is, I'm drawing a brook,
It's
the
soon.
blank brook. They have the wrong date. It's going to
Yes.
be Monday the 15th.
This Monday.
Okay.
And the county is going to have a number of agencies there so that people can go there if they need to talk to, the feds, the state, or any other agencies that could help them out. As well as, I think, starting tomorrow, 211 will be fully operational to respond to questions and provide assistance to any residents. Monday. Yep, 2 to 7.
There we go. Also a question, the siren is operational, correct, Roger, or no, is it not?
No,
I know.
Roger, would you like to respond? Because you had a very good response earlier today.
There's three prongs to the decision that was made, and I know that it was.
I understand, this is straight line winds, not a tornado, it wouldn't have been sounded anyway, probably.
Right, but years ago, we chose to abandon the sirens because they lack effectiveness. They are, there are other methods available, so many with, communication.
Code
with
red
our
and all that
company,
stuff from the
cell
county.
phone alerts,
Yep.
what from
Yep.
the weather channel, that type of thing. And then the cost of maintaining, the sirens was getting quite expensive because it's such a specialty.
Yep.
And we presented it to council that we would be abandoning that, and, that was years ago.
Yep.
And they still exist, but, I know at least one is not operational.
The other question I got is it central dispatch or one of those that has, or through the county, has that, where you can sign up for emergency notifications? Isn't there something out there for the public that, for just this kind of thing, it's all kind of like the Amber Alert type system, thank you. It was there. That is available. If I remember it, I signed up for something. I don't remember who was through those, but.
I'm not aware of that. The last
Okay.
thing I knew that the county dispatch had was the Smart 911, but that's been abandoned because of costs.
Okay.
And so I'm not sure, that there's, if they're involved in Nixle or one of those type of notification systems, but,
Okay.
I'm not aware.
All right. I see Mr. Sear in the crowd somewhere. Might be something to look at down the road in the county as far as notification.
I will ask the question, I don't
Yeah.
know that there's a.
If we don't, it probably wouldn't.
Yeah,
It probably would
that's a good
behoove
idea.
us to see if EOC can look into that stuff or and put it out, because everybody carries one of them dumb little phones around, and
Yeah.
you're going to answer that. You're going to hear that more than you're going to hear the siren. So,
I
Well,
We
some
didn't-
people don't carry them.
No, I mean, you know,
Yeah.
some people don't. I have older senior friends who I tell them to keep their phone charged up in the event,
well,
but
I
then,
know. My mom's in
then
the
I
same
still
boat.
can't get a hold of them,
I
and
know.
not everybody has a smartphone. My smartphone, I don't sleep with it. I didn't, and I also, we didn't get any warning.
No,
Right.
and
We
you,
did-
and with a 99.5 mile an hour wind is what I was told, you're not gonna get a warning.
Well,
It came across the lake and you're not gonna get a warning. As far
It's
as,
already gone.
it's already gone, it's
Yeah.
gone by the time they were able to type it out and get it
and
to us.
but I do think we need to do
The-
all of the above.
Okay, so the other thing, just so you guys are aware, between our county emergency manager, our fire department, our police department, our city, there are plans. We are not hanging out there by any means, not having a plan. There are plans out there, they've been drawn up, they get redrawn. The county emergency manager has to put plans, there's a set amount of time and they gotta go through all the plans and redo them again. They are out there. I was part of the team that would respond for EMS back when I was there. I would head down to the EOC, which is down in Muskegon, and I would do the direction down there. There is stuff in place for this.
But did any of that help anybody?
No,
I mean,
It is helping.
is it not normal for the town to have an emergency disaster plan?
We do.
We do?
I don't know what
We have one
it
through
is.
the county. The cities don't have it's a county system that is, each county emergency manager is the one that's responsible for the emergency plan.
But apparently nobody knows anything about them, right?
I'd like to know
But,
what it is.
There should be
I
something,
mean,
that would be a good thing to put in the water bill or something. Here's what our emergency plans are. what to do.
The document is probably, 6 or 8 inches thick. It's based on what kind of emergency, chemical, radiological, biological, weather. It's all, yeah,
Well-
it's, as Kim tells you, it's huge. There's no way we can disseminate this information to the public.
I don't think that's what we want. I think we want, I'd
If
like to
this
know,
had been a chemical emergency, what would have happened?
I'd like to know.
You'd have been notified by the police department or fire department. We would have come to your door and said, hey, this is what we need to do.
And how they would do it one door at a time?
If it comes
What
down to
would-
it, absolutely. Absolutely.
We have signed up, or are signing up, I know I signed the PO today, for text.gov. It launches next week. So anybody with a cell phone, we can give you immediate notification of any type of those events. Or, a water main break, stay away from Warner Street and Benston. Any type of message, if the people sign up, can go out en masse, almost immediately. But the emergency plans are not necessarily, I don't want it to sound the way it might sound, not necessarily for the public, they're for the emergency responders. They go through those, they update them, they have simulated events, and basically, you use those as a basis in the emergency to know how to respond and who to get a hold of.
I don't think I'm not asking for that. What I'm asking for is how do we notify people, given that we all have such different ways. I mean, I know Weather Channel was mentioned. I haven't had cable TV in decades, I have it's not always on, you know what I mean? So I would like to see notification, because I do think a siren might have caught that, or at the last.
It wasn't a tornado, it was a straight line wind.
Well, we had straight line in '98.
And the siren wouldn't have gone off then either,
It
because
did.
it was not a tornado.
It did, I told you it did, and I went down to my
Okay.
basement,
All
so
right.
it made a difference to me, you know
All
what I
right.
mean?
That's-
So I'd like to see more about what our emergency notification plan is. I don't need
Go
to
down
have
and
all
talk
the
to the
EMS
emergency-
detail.
Go down and talk to the emergency manager, I'm sure she would enlighten you to whatever
Happy
you want to
to
do.
meet with you.
Well,
She'd be happy.
Oh, absolutely. She's very, very eloquent.
I don't wanna speak
But
with
what we need
somebody,
is-
I wanna see what the notification, how are people notified in the event of an emergency, in particular a weather emergency.
what we need is not one person going down and asking her, but we need something that informs everybody. I don't know what
It
that
doesn't
is,
seem
but
like we
right
have
now,
that,
nobody
though, does
knows
it?
where to call or what to do.
We do, the double-edged sword was that the day before, well, the day of, the evening of, we also lost, communications at City Hall.
Yeah.
I enjoyed finally sitting down and listening to a few dozen messages. Hopefully the people understood why I didn't respond. The most effective notification is boots on the ground. The Tuesday that it happened, police, fire, DPW, myself were pretty much going, not house to house, but in general, that was the best notification.
Well, I
With the
mean,
text
All the
back up,
houses on
that would be
Country Club
another
that
tool.
have an X on the window were searched and
Yeah,
dealt with. That's,
but yeah, I think you're missing, I think you're missing my point. But
I understand what your point is. The problem is
It's not
there are
Jordan.
certain things
Yeah.
that are an impossibility. You can try the best you can try. You can do what you can do, but you can't. Boots on the ground, door to door, is the best way to get a hold of everybody.
But you're
And-
missing my point. I don't mean after an event. I'm talking about in the event that we have extreme weather, that we have at least some notice of, and we had to have had some notice of that. I'm
No,
not,
there was no notice for that.
okay,
Because Tanya, I keep abreast all this stuff, and it followed me to Muskegon because I was going to work. And what had happened afterwards, I mean, I was watching the radar. I watch the radar every day, multiple times a day. It's just what I do. But
I'm not gonna make it go farther, but I do think that, I do think you're missing my point, and maybe I'll be able to make that clear in writing. How's
Okay.
The whole thing was done in 15 minutes.
yeah, absolutely,
You know, I mean,
absolutely.
it blew through. I was getting ready to go to work at 5:30 in the morning, and it was fine. And then we started hearing the wind coming. It came. 15 minutes later, it was all done, and all them trees came down in 15 minutes.
Yep.
It was just an unbelievable thing. You know, and,
Sure.
and if you lose power, you can't really let people know. You can't tell them to watch television because they don't have power.
For somebody like me, anything that comes over your phone wouldn't do me any good because I shut my phone off when I go to bed.
Well, what I'm saying is notification, but recognizing that people have such a variety of ways. I just think going forward, it wouldn't hurt for us to, I'd like to know a little
Your
bit more.
preference would be to have the sirens working again and
I-
somebody be able to flip the switch.
I think it would be one piece
got
of a notification plan, yes. Most of the time, we do get some idea that we've got severe weather. I mean, I was glad that I still I had charged my cell phone up prior to that, so I was able to use my cell phone. And I got mine mostly from social media, and that's when I saw that White Lake Fire Authority and other folks had said to stay put. I didn't know that up until that point, you know, I didn't see it on TV.
Who also lost their fiber and their phone for 4 days, 5 days.
Thursday evening it came back on,
Yeah.
so 4 days, 3.
So
Tuesday morning.
they didn't have it. They ended up making and getting a hold of the cell company to get a phone cloned at the fire department so they could answer phone calls as they came in. But yeah, it's difficult to notify everybody.
But I just think we were lucky, and Scott knows, he gets me.
Yeah, I do too.
All right, has everybody had their say? Now, public comment.
Val Barnes, Public 3 King Street. First, let me say the last city council meeting that was held in the middle of this worst weather catastrophe, I was really impressed with a couple, maybe 3 of the council members that showed genuine concern about our friends, neighbors, clients, and families during this devastating time. When I was here, I didn't have power, but I also didn't have any damage. Country Club subdivision will be going through the after effects for months, if not years. So when I got home, my power came back on. And what do you think? The first thing I saw was this the television story of the mayor and his neighbor in a brawl. So that does not need to be on news media. It needs to be done in a court of law. Not on social media, not in news media, but somebody had to have called the news media, or it probably wouldn't have been on there. So, for the good of the city and the citizens of the City of Whitehall, I'm asking the action be taken to remove Steve Salter from mayor position in any committee related to the city. Please take into consideration. A resignation would be the best.
Hi, I'm Christina. So I'd like to talk about what I talked about earlier. So I don't know who's gaslighting you, telling that the bathrooms got closed at 10 o'clock. I have video of it because I was quite upset as my daughter needed to use the restroom. It was an emergency. It was well before 10 o'clock. There were signs on both doors that said restroom closed. There was no porta-johns that we saw within that vicinity. So again, whoever's gaslighting you, telling you that it was at 10 o'clock that it got closed, they're lying to you. Also, I know you guys get a lot of negative, you guys get positive things. I just want to say, this is a great town to live in. Wonderful people live here. As far as the city hall goes, there's been probably 2 people that have been excruciatingly rude every single time I talk to them. But I just want to focus on those front girls that work up there. They're phenomenal. They are amazing. They are so sweet. They're so kind. And I know that they probably get some backlash, but man, if they deal with whatever and they pick up the phone and they are cheery as can be, they don't let anything bother them. Even when you come in, they're wonderful. So Whitehall, we have so much to be thankful for. Again, great community. There are a few bad apples, but y'all need to give those city girls a raise. And I mean, maybe just like a portable air conditioning, like that would probably be nice.
Ladies first.
Hello, I'm Kathy Russell at 303 South Mears, and I'm also one of the managers at Kobe's Hokey Pokey. And I want to thank the city and Tifa for the improved parking lot, and the comments we're receiving from our customers is fabulous. They're like, finally, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I did have an opportunity to drive on it just this past week, and it's so smooth. So I know that there's been a lot yet to happen back there. We need to have the handicap sign moved back into position where the striping is, as well as the stop sign as you come through the alley to enter that parking area. And I did call DPW. They said I'd try and get to it, and I said, I understand you guys are swamped, and I get it, but if you can get to it, that would be awesome. So thank you very much. I'm so glad that parking lot is paved.
Good evening. My name is Tim Cooper. My wife and I live in the epicenter of this storm. I woke at 5:45 Tuesday morning and looked out my living room window and saw over Lake. I can see White Lake, and I could see to the horizon storm approaching over Lake Michigan. That was at 5:45. I saw the lightning and I was tired. I went back to bed. I didn't get to sleep. I heard the wind rise. It got louder. I opened the curtain. I could see the neighbor's trees at a 45. I told my wife we were in a tornado. I've lived here all my life, by the way. She got up. We live in a very tiny house. No basement. No shelter of any kind. Personally, I thought I was going to die. So, we survived that. It sounded like the freight train that people speak of. It was loud, very loud. And I went back to the living room window, opened the curtains, and I was waiting for the trailer across the street to start coming at my home. That's when I heard on the window, and I thought, this is a stupid place to be standing. So I closed the curtains and I walked the 20 feet that I had possible into my dining room. The wind subsided and I walked outside and saw the devastation. I walked out into my driveway. I could see the power lines were down, so I knew better. So I didn't venture any further. Although some young, I don't know how old he was, some young man was trying to get on through on his bicycle. There was no passing our street. So I informed him that he should go home right away and watch for downed lines. So we waited. There was no siren. There wasn't going to be a siren. There was no time for a siren. And the best response, or the best, my opinion, my wife and I went through a near tornado in Lansing last October. And I heard the siren. I was at staying at my sister's home, and I heard the siren from their station, and I knew what it was because when I pulled up to that corner years ago, the doggone thing went off as a test mode, and my window happened to be down. It was loud. Well, I was sitting in a garage and I could see the wind or the rain start to go sideways, so I knew I had to close the garage door. So as I got up to close garage doors, when I heard the siren, our phones immediately went off with an alert. So we headed for her basement. It was soundproof. Didn't hear a thing. We came out and her yard and neighborhood was destroyed. So here we are again. Thank God no one was hurt in this incident. I've seen homes cut in half. When I finally realized, my wife and I realized that it got lighter and we could see the power lines and knew our way around, we started checking on our neighbors.
Can you wrap this up? You've had your time.
I'm sorry?
Can you wrap this up? You've had your 3 minutes.
Okay. Just that I talked to Mr. Salter, didn't know him from Adam, only from the looks that the pictures that I'd seen on Facebook. Him and I had a couple of conversations to my worries about the response time. Someone came around to our house in the afternoon, and this happened at 6 a.m. This was late in the afternoon when someone put an X on our front door. To me, that was unacceptable. I had offered Mr. Salter, or suggested to Mr. Salter, that there be a better response team, and that I would personally volunteer for that response team. We talked about a couple of things. I addressed the noise issue, that we are going to listen to chainsaws and wood chippers for a very, very long time. And soon it's going to be everybody and his brother coming into that neighborhood, getting firewood from their buddies, and we're going to listen to chainsaws longer. I asked him about some kind of ordinance where the chainsaws and whatnot could be shut down at a certain time of night. Saying that, I didn't know Mr. Salter from Adam. I had no clue of his character. 2 days ago, Mr. Salter rode up on his bicycle, right after the fact that I had learned that Mr. Salter had assaulted a female.
You've had your...
I'm going to keep speaking, Mr. Salter.
You've had enough. You've had your time.
Okay. His words to me were, we live in a non-binary society, and I'll do it again. And the look in his eyes, he literally wanted to punch me. I was ready for him to strike at me, and I was ready for it. Believe me.
You've had your time.
Good.
Sit down.
I'm calling for your resignation as a citizen or of this city. I'm calling for your resignation from all of whatever you do.
You've had your time. Sit down now, please. Let's carry on with the meeting. Next up is old business. funnel field request. Has there been any change on that, Scott?
He also said that he'd do it again. I believe him. But he also informed me that he'd do it again.
Don't know if Mr. Dunlap or Olson are here. Oh, I didn't swing around Friday.
You're right. Yeah, so I'm just here to answer some of your guys' questions that you had about it.
Which one are you?
I'm Jacob, sorry, I'm Jacob.
That was me that talked with you the other day.
Okay. Yeah, so hopefully I can answer some of your guys' questions and concerns that you had about the plan for the car show.
Council?
I don't think we had as many questions about car shows as we did about the motorcycle.
Well, that's, yeah, the whole
motorcycle
thing, yeah.
event itself. I just don't think any of us were real comfortable with somebody outside coming in and using one of our parks to put on a, motorcycle display. I fear for liability for the city and everything else as far as something like that goes, and I just don't, without having more information, I don't see how we can allow something like this to go through.
I don't think the motorcycle thing is gonna work, honestly. But if you wanna do a car show, if you were to I think if a start would be if you were to lay out a map of the park and say show us what area you wanted to use, where the cars would come in and go out. Again, are you gonna be selling tickets or taking money of any type?
Yeah.
Would you need fences around something? Would you need police protection? We don't have enough to go on right now.
Right, so as far as police protection, I don't think that would be necessary. We're not gonna need roads blocked off or anything like that. We're not doing a cruising type thing. We just wanna do a stationary car show. Fencing, I wouldn't think we would need it. We could use, caution tape or something to block off certain areas so cars don't drive through it. And I do have a map of like certain areas that if you would like to see that drawn up a little bit. As far as for the dirt bikes, I understand you guys' concern about those. We did have some safety measures in place for that. We would have an EMT on standby, insurance policy. It's a $2 to $3 million insurance policy to cover property and to cover spectators. Along with they use a mat that they will set down on the grass so it doesn't tear up the grass. If you're not comfortable with that, that's your call. This isn't my property, but we did have some measurements in line to keep everybody safe, along with keeping the property safe. Because I understand that upkeep with the park is not easy.
So Jacob, I guess my question is, what would the freestyle dirt bike show entail?
So they just do some tricks on their bikes. They'll hit a ramp and they'll hit some tricks while they're in the air, and they will land on an airbag ramp. So it's a ramp for a down angle when you land on it, but it's also air. So if they were to wipe out or something, it would cushion the landing, preventing injuries. Which I have pictures of that as well that I could submit to you guys at any time if you.
Yeah, from my perspective, I don't see that this was. I think what happened was a lack of information on our part,
right,
to make that decision. As far as the hows and the whys and what you're planning on doing. So I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're able to explain this, at least from my perspective.
We're looking at more of a motorcycle show type thing than we are like a enduro race or something like that.
Yeah, so it'd be like they're just doing tricks. They're not going to be racing. They're not going to be just tearing up the grass around there. It's just one area of the park that they would drive up, hit the ramp, come down, and they would just go back around and do it again.
How many of them are there?
There would be 2 or 3, and he hasn't quite gotten the third guy yet, but there's a possibility there would be 3 bikes there.
And how long?
And they'd be one at a time, I'm
Yeah.
assuming?
Yes, one at a time.
Okay.
How long does the show last?
It's gonna last about roughly an hour. As far as the car show, that's gonna last about 4 hours. But the bikes, it's gonna last hour, maybe 2 hours.
What I would just say, are you like 17, 18, something like that?
I'm actually 23.
You're 23, okay.
Yeah, I look young, that's right. I look really young.
Okay.
That's a good thing later in life.
I was gonna say, it's something like this is awfully hard to grasp when you're young.
Yeah.
And if there's somebody else in your organization that has done these things, you could get some help on planning and laying out, answering the questions, asking the questions that need to be asked and then answering them, and come back to us with more information.
Right. This was kind of like thrown on me last minute with Hunter. This was like his idea. He eventually told my mom about it and my sister, but really didn't communicate too much to me. So it was kind of thrown on me a little bit later, and I started coming up with my own ideas, and I discussed it today with him. I called him earlier just to make sure if he had any ideas as far as safety to maybe ease your guys' mind and allow us to do it. And that's when he told me about the airbags that they use for the landing ramp and the mats they use for the grass, and the insurance policy that they would have. So I just figured that would be good. I do have a map of what we would use as the layout if you guys would like to see that.
There's a lot of pieces to what you're trying to do.
There is, yeah.
And not to put any pressure on council, but they want to stage this event on August 17th. And typically with these events, the Old Maritime, the Arts and Crafts, if council is okay with the concept and comfortable, and I think I brought up some concerns about the motocross and all of that, and I think he's answered them this evening. Typically, the council will approve subject to coordinating with DPW and police. So some of those, I guess the question was the fundraiser. I don't know if it matters to us all that much. We just we work with Jacob and his brother as far as mapping what areas they can use, and Chief covering, any safety concerns. And Brian, I don't know if our Public Works Director spoke with you or somebody, but Brian did say the other day that they use mats, and he doesn't think there would be any type of significant damage to the park, which was my concern. Of course, I read this letter and I'm seeing cars driving over and bikes all over the place, and it's kind of like, uh-oh, what are we getting into? But I think his presentation tonight and Brian doing a little more research, my comfort level is much higher.
What about noise? Is there gonna be a lot of noise from these bikes?
It would be a decent amount, but it wouldn't be too loud. Dirt bikes are,
They're just like a regular dirt bike.
yeah, they're just regular dirt bikes. It'd be allowed as maybe a chainsaw.
Harleys make noise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're fairly quiet as far as bikes are concerned anyway. We would like to push back the time to like September 14th though, because we haven't been able to come to the meeting, so whether or not if you were to approve it, we would like it to be pushed back so we have more time.
And I'm looking at the letter, what time of day are you looking at? I guess that's one of the details we can still work with.
Around, I would say noon to like 6, and I want to do it for 4 hours and leave us time to like do some cleanup. We're not just gonna leave, the park the way it is.
How long, did you say how long the bikes would actually be performing?
Yeah, so about an hour to 2 hours.
Okay.
Probably a couple different times, would be my guess.
Yeah.
You would do one in a part and then maybe
Yeah.
do a B part later. Okay.
I think my concerns are what everybody else is, just concerns for the park being chewed up. I mean, park staff work really hard to keep the parks up, and safety of people, people coming to watch, and just wondering where all of this is gonna happen. I think also just a little bit more about who actually you were with. I mean, I know we've gotten a letter, but like who would be responsible people, and are there volunteers, and just a little more information. But if you're going to be working with the police and DPW, Scott, to see if something like that would work.
So do you want just tentative approval from us? Is that what you're looking for, or?
Well, he's looking for it, but I'm not
yes.
sure about tentative. I think, if you're comfortable at this point, is to approve the use of Funnel Field for, as requested, subject to coordination with city staff.
All right, I'll make that motion.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say yes.
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 Opposed say no. It's approved.
There you go.
Thank you much. We'll be in touch. Thank you.
All right, new business, resolution 24, compensatory pay. Scott.
Yeah, of course, storms never come in a timely manner. This is primarily asking council to compensate with pay versus hours. Still 1-to-1, there's no time and a half pay or anything. For the hourly employees that put in significant time during the storm, I think Brian Armstrong probably leads the pack. Myself, Chief, I'm not sure if Alyssa had any overtime. I think that's about it. Everybody else in the Public Works, oh, Jake, down at DPW, and I think you're still hourly, right? Your salary? Okay, so it would cover maybe 6 employees. It's not a ton of money, but just some sort of compensation. I know in 1998, the city did cover the overtime for the non-hourly employees. So I think at most somebody might be around $1,600 minus taxes and FICA and insurance and everything else they're gonna take out of it.
I have compensatory pay at my job, and it helps a lot, and it actually helps all involved. I mean, because essentially you're just giving a day off where it's earned elsewhere. Have you thought of a letter of understanding, maybe with the union as well, the DPW union, and see if that's something you may want to do with them as well, or not?
No, they get time and a half.
Okay, all right.
That's in the union contract,
Okay.
and there's, I mean, they're gonna get paid for everything that they did.
Yeah, I mean, and if we ended up deciding to do a letter of understanding with them, that they get compensatory pay or compensatory time, I mean, it's just.
I don't think
I don't
you
know if they
can,
would
but the
take-
Fair Labor Standard Act would exclude them from comp time.
Okay.
Cause like I said, I think there's 6 department heads and 2 non-department heads that do not qualify for time and a half pay.
Okay.
So we do allow comp time, but end of the fiscal year, we try and use it up before the end of the year, and some of us just kinda got caught.
Absolutely. I will make a motion to put resolution 24 on the board.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I think I would feel better about it if I saw a list. It wouldn't take too long to put a list of the people and the amount of pay that they're gonna get if we approve it.
It's not, it's time off, it's not pay.
No, this is pay.
This is pay.
Oh, this is pay?
This is pay.
Oh, so it's not time off then?
Correct. I believe Brian is about 39 hours, I'm probably about 35, Chief is 10? 11 and a half. I almost shorted him an hour and a half. I don't know if you or Alyssa, only a few hours, and then Jake, I think, had 2 hours. And again, I think, you know, it's probably anywhere from $200 up to $1,800. Nobody's gonna get rich.
Now, I'm gonna make the unpopular comment. I worked at Howmet for 41 plus years as a salaried employee. 8 of those years I was an exempt salary employee, which means you work as much as is required to do the job. You don't get any extra pay for it. You don't get any extra days off for it. So I am not in favor of the motion or the resolution.
Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Holmstrom,
Yes.
Sickingham,
Yes.
Brown,
No.
Zemer,
No.
Hillebrand,
Yes.
Kabala. Yes. Salter.
Yes. Resolution 24. Passed. Next up is public comment. Anyone like to make a comment?
Hi, everybody. Eric Harsh, 1511 Moody Street. I've seen a couple of you guys around my neighborhood. As far as the cleanup is concerned, seeing 3 of you guys in here right now that were just in my neighborhood for 2 days was pretty cool. It was nice to see the involvement and the city coming and doing the cleanup. It was great, so I want to thank you for that. We live in a cool small town. It's pretty interesting. Meters was cleared by 25 neighborhood guys and gals. Just went down and started helping those guys clear it. So it was just pretty neat to see everybody come together. On the subject of Mayor Salter, I believe he does a great job for the city. What happened, I believe there's a lot more facts to it than what it is. It doesn't sound great looking at it from the public words, but I believe there's a lot to it that we're not taking into account. I believe he was not charged with a crime, and I'm in support of Steve Salter continuing to be on there. Thank you.
Anyone else have anything?
Hello, Heather O'Connell. I too would like to speak in regards to Steve Salter. On a personal level, yes, I would consider Steve a friend of mine. On a professional level, he has been involved in things that I do here. I've for many years run Whitehall Apartments. Steve, before being mayor or anyone connected to the community, would show up and drop off quarters to my office and say if anybody didn't have anything, let them know that somebody volunteered quarters with no name noted. Sorry, I'm calling you out now. When buses ran through here, Steve would stop in and say, here are some bus passes if any of your residents need it and don't have it. Steve showed up in the middle of everything that was going on I live in Fruitland Township at the edge of the storm and took damage as well. He calls, he checks in. I personally worked in a business right down the road from Steve and Leslie, right where all of this happened. I can tell you on several occasions, I have heard Amy, who I keep hearing people describe her as an elderly senior. And the version that I know is someone who shouts and yells vulgar things across the yard in the middle of the afternoon because she's drunk. The person that I know, that I witnessed, I was in the yard, I've heard her shout horrible things. And all I'm saying is I understand what's been made aware. I would ask, how many times has she been arrested for verbally being inappropriate in her yard? I watched her get arrested when I worked at the business right down the road from her. I just don't think that we're relaying all of the information of the character of the person that you're saying. I'm not saying that all of the story is there, but there's definitely more to the story. I have heard her be abusive to both Steve and Leslie. And all I know is that we're acting on something that is a police matter, and we should wait until that plays out to know what the facts are. Thank you.
Anyone else have anything? We're adjourned.